Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on Bay Atlantic University MSM Agent Summit 2020 Live. Our attendees are on the process of joining the webinar. In the meantime, on behalf of all of us in MSM and BAU, I hope you, your families, and all your colleagues are all safe and well. All of us are going through this invisible pandemic, and I'm sure that humanity will overcome it in the coming times ahead. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen from all parts of the world. I would like to thank you all for taking time out and being here today with us. My name is Jim George, Manager Global Marketing Office, overseeing US institutions at MSM, and I'll be your moderator for today's webinar. I'm delighted and pleased to introduce today's presenter, Christopher Brinker. Chris is the Director of Outreach at Bay Atlantic University. A heartily welcome, Chris, for joining this wonderful webinar. Before I hand over the mic to Chris, I will run through the housekeeping requirements that are needed for today's presentation and the Zoom webinar platform. Yeah. So if you could just go to the second slide. Yeah. So what's today's agenda? Yes. So you will be hearing a comprehensive presentation on BAU by Chris. As a reminder, everyone is currently muted and will encourage you to type in your questions and comments throughout the presentation in the Q&A session present in the control panel. Later on in the presentation, we'll have a brief moment for Q&A, at which point you'll also be encouraged to type in your questions. In case if you're facing any technical issues, please feel free to drop in a message in the chat box or the Q&A session. We will also have a polling session during the webinar. So all our attendees will have to be a little attentive during the presentation and also will request your active participation during these polls. The webinar is recorded and will be posted on our YouTube channel afterwards. For those who have just joined in, welcome to today's webinar on BAU MSM Agent Summit 2020 Live. So without further ado, let's kickstart things off by welcoming our presenter, Chris. Chris, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim. Thanks for having me. And thank you again for everybody that's joining here. Hope everybody's well, as he had mentioned. I know it's a little early, late, wherever you are. So won't take up much of your time here. So as I mentioned, my name is Christopher Brinker. I'm the Director of Outreach at Bay Atlantic University in Washington, D.C. As far as just I know what some of you want to know first and foremost before we get to the overall things, the COVID-19 updates. I've included up here a graph as far as the current statistics on the numbers. As you can see, the bottom line is the DC line. So as far as safety in light of this pandemic, the District of Columbia has done a great job at, as you can see here, flattening the curve, so to speak. If anything, DC actually, as of yesterday, only had 3 new cases. So they're currently 40th as far as the United States. DC is in phase 2 of the reopening. All businesses are at 50% capacity, but open. Virginia is on phase 3. So the only requirement is 6 feet apart. There's no capacity requirements. So everything's back up and running towards that quote unquote new normal when we get back to the fall. Outdoor accommodations are in most restaurants. They've taken out the parking, and wherever you're able to park is now the outdoor seating. BAU, I wanted to make a note, because of accessibility, now accepts Duolingo, which now makes it much easier for students to access, and it's cheaper to my understanding. The BAU staff is going back July 15th. So actually in about 1 week, the staff will be going back. We have a Mentora College, which is our English language school that's also located on campus. So we are going to have small college summer classes that will, of course, practice all of the new social distancing standards, but that will assist in a smooth transition so we don't go from an empty building to all of our students coming back. And this allows us to make that smooth transition. Fall 2020, spring 2021, at the very least, will be a hybrid of online and physical classes. That'll be determined as needed based on safety and immigration needs. I know that one issue right now is the new immigration that they're trying to pass or get started that says that physical classes are required for international students. So that means that at the very least we'll offer hybrid classes to make sure that no students are required to leave. And of course it'll be based on safety as well. But at the very least, we can shuffle around classes. So maybe one is in class during the week, at the very least in the building at all times, to keep everybody physically present. But like I said, only once at the very least. As far as where we're located, as you can see here, East Coast, Washington, D.C. The great thing about this is a lot of the states in that area are very closely gapped. And so you have Boston, Philadelphia, New York, New Jersey, Delaware, North Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia. It's all within a several-hour drive. This is the District of Columbia itself. So actually this target that you see here, that's actually not the White House, that's us. We're located just a block from the White House. And also I wanted to point out that the District of Columbia is only 4 miles in radius. And so we like to say that DC is our campus. We ourselves have an 8-story building where the classes are held. However, right when you step out of the building, as you can see here, you have museums, you have all sorts of monuments, businesses, things like that, right outside your door. As far as Bay Atlantic University itself, we were established in 2014. We offer programs that are centered around where the school is located. So we're a part of what's called BAU Global. It's one of the largest private education networks in Europe. We have universities all over the world, which I'll go over into a moment. But each university kind of takes into account what that city is best known for. I always like to say, if you're studying food and you can either study in Paris or Arizona, no offense to Arizona food, but your degree holds more weight and there's more job opportunities if you study food in Paris. Same thing here. We offer programs in business, technology, and politics. It's what Washington, D.C. is most known for. It's how it became so powerful. And so that's why we've kind of taken on that role. So that's what we offer there. And I'll go over the exact degrees in a moment. But like I said, we offer the 3 main fields in business, technology, and politics. So the degrees carry more weight and there's more job opportunities. These are the exact programs themselves. As far as our business programs, we have accounting, economics and finance, and business administration. For our politics degrees, it's political science and international affairs. And then for the computer courses, it's data science and information technology. And the master's programs are on the right here. I also wanted to note that we are working on 2 additional master's courses right now. I believe it's blockchain and AI. So that's currently what we're in the works for. This is the current tuition. As you can see here, much more affordable compared to a lot of the other US institutions. Right now, per year, you're looking at about $16,000. For the master's programs, about $18,000 per year. Bachelor's programs are 4 years, master's programs are 2 years. These are the estimated tuition and living expenses. I did want to note that the master's living and tuition expenses are on the next slide. The only difference is really just the cost of the schooling itself, because housing, food, transportation is separate. I did just want to also make a note that as far as transportation, we just received what's called UPass, which actually cuts transportation costs in half. And then the food is really, of course, up to the student. I want to make an important note here that students can do a 4-month installment plan. So each semester is 4 months. So that means they pay 8 months out of the 12-month year. So that would make the ability to pay a little less than $2,000 per month while they're in school. It makes it a lot easier to not have to pay entire semesters up front. So we do have monthly installment plans. Here's the masters. Like I said, everything else is the same except for the tuition is about $22.50 per month for the installment plan. And then this would be the first polling question.
Yeah, so here's the poll time. So let's see what are the questions that have been asked. So I would request all of your active participations for the same. So the first one is, in which year was Bay Atlantic University established? So as Chris had mentioned, it's a new generation university, and we'd request all of you to please vote in the right answer that you feel that which year was Bay Atlantic University established. The second question is, how many undergraduate programs does Bay Atlantic University offer? So did Chris mention 3 programs, or was it 5 programs, or was it 6 programs, or was it 10 programs? Would request your participation. Just click in the answers and just submit it, and then we can have a look at that. And the final question is, how much is the yearly tuition fee for an undergraduate program in BAU? So did Chris mention, was it $15,900 for the whole year? Or was it $17,400 for the whole year? Or was it $20,950 for the whole year? Or was it $22,250 for the whole year? So we've got nearly 34% of them voting. So we'll just wait for a couple of seconds more as we get at least 50% of the votes. So we would request all of you to just answer the questions, and then accordingly I can just release the results. Yes, so we've got another 5 more seconds. We'll just wait if anyone else would like to poll in the answers. Yeah, so we'll share the results with the team, and we'll just look into how productive was the session till now. Yeah, so for the first one, we see that in which year was Bay Atlantic University established? Nearly 52% of them have given the right answer, and that is 2014, being a new generation university. And the next one is, how many undergraduate programs does Bay Atlantic University offer? 68% of them have told the right answer, and that's this 6 programs that have been offered. And then how much is the yearly tuition fees for an undergraduate program in BAU? So 72% of them have told the right answer, that is $15,900. So thanks for your active participation. And Chris, over to you to take things forward.
Thank you. All right. Glad that we're getting the right answers here. So that means I'm doing my job right. Yeah. As far as the admission requirements for the undergraduate department, I also did want to make a note that I just received a message from our president that the English proficiency requirements were going to be decreased. So we will send out an email with those updates, but as far as the English, and I have the next slide that has all of them, but the IELTS requirement will now be 5.5. The other testing scores will be updated accordingly across the board. And then as far as graduate, and I also wanted to make a note that for both our undergraduate and our graduate degrees, the SATs and the GMAT/GREs are not required. You can get a scholarship if you elect to take that, which I'll go over in a moment. However, it's not required in order to attend. And then as I mentioned here, we've also updated the English proficiency requirements. The IELTS will go down to a 6.0 for our graduate programs. All the other requirements will be updated accordingly. As far as our scholarship opportunities, we have 2 options for international students. First, we have as I had mentioned, the merit-based. If a student elects to take the SAT or the GMAT/GRE, then depending on their score, they can get either a 100% scholarship, a 50% scholarship, or a 25% scholarship. The other option is the Hussein Yusel Scholarship. This awards up to a 50% scholarship based on the overall student and an essay. I did want to first note that you are not able to combine scholarships. It's the greater of one or the other. But as I had mentioned, you're looking at up to 100% for a merit-based scholarship or up to a 50%. The Hussein Youssel Scholarship comes from funding from BAU Global. We've had, I think, a little over 5.5 million in scholarships awarded since our I think just over the last 2 years. And so because we have that set amount of money set aside, I also wanted to note that the earlier a student applies, because we have rolling admissions, the earlier a student applies, the more scholarship money is in the fund, which means the more likely a student is to be awarded a scholarship, and the higher amount they're more likely to get awarded. So I always suggest apply as early as possible. That gives you the best opportunity for the scholarship. As I mentioned, we're updating these across the board. As far as our English proficiency requirements, bachelor's will now be an IELTS of 5.5, graduate will be a 6.0, and then the others, Duolingo, TOEFL, and TOEIC, all three of those will be updated accordingly, and will go down accordingly as well. It is also important to note that even with the lowered English proficiency requirements, if the student still does score slightly below that, we also have the ability for the student to go to Mentora College. Any student that does enroll at BAU does have the ability to take Mentora College classes for free. So if the student does still want to work on their English, they do have the ability to take Mentora College classes and work on that on the side. There is also the ability to elect to take Mentora College if they score slightly below. So for example, if a student scores a 5, they can always take Mentora College. The cost is $3.99 a month, and that gives them a great opportunity to test it out. We do understand that committing to a 4-year university in a completely new country, one that they've most likely sometimes never been to even before, can be a little daunting. And so this is a great way for them to cheaply pay $400 a month, take Mentora College for a few months, make sure that they like the school, make sure that they like DC itself, and then they can elect to transfer over to BAU. So that's an option. We also, because we're such a small school, I did want to note that any students that do score slightly below, please don't hinder them from applying. Any students that score slightly below, we look at their overall makeup, and we work with them ourselves to make sure that no student gets missed. So that's another thing too, that we're able to do, is that any students that do qualify, please send them our way. Any students that don't, please send them our way, and we'll work with them. These are the application deadlines for the intakes. Like I said, we have rolling admissions, but these are the application deadlines for the intakes. The spring intake is on December 1st. Fall intake is on August 1st. We can push applications. This is really more so for visa issues, as far as rushing that, especially with COVID right now. So I think we can just mainly focus on spring at this point, unless there's any students that are ready to go right now. But as I mentioned, we are doing hybrid classes, so we're ready to go. There's going to be no issues with us. These are the procedures for the admissions themselves. I'm sure you're all most likely well aware of this. This is as far as just the common process in the United States. And of course, we have a committed admissions team. I'm the main point of contact. So if there's any specific files that anybody's having any issues with, come to me, and I always get whoever is needed involved right away and get it taken care of. And as I mentioned, we'll make sure to send out this presentation so everybody has this process down. As far as just some general DC by the numbers, we understand, especially when we're talking about students in college, that it's about the experience. And that's why a lot of students do decide to study internationally. They want the experience of the culture, and they want the experience of the area. So as far as DC itself, #1 best economy in America. This is especially important for business students, for political science students, for tech students, the only 3 fields of study we offer, because that means that that's where the market is. The average salary in DC, as far as cost of living and the salary itself, is significantly higher in DC. And that's because of the economy. It's #5 best city for young professionals in America. That's because there's a lot of great universities in the area: Georgetown, University of Maryland, Johns Hopkins. And so that's why you have a large influx of these young professionals. The nightlife is very young too. And #2 city for fitness among all major cities. This plays into the 1-2 over. #4 for parks among large U.S. cities. #4 most influential cities in the world. #19 in best places to live in America. Most likely traffic is the reason why it's not #1. #7 overall safest cities in the world, and #35 most diverse. I did also want to make a note that there's 6 just of the top 35 cities in DC, Maryland, or Virginia. So that not only gives you the culture of DC, but it also gives you the culture of the United States in and of itself. BAU by the numbers, we have a 90% graduation rate. We like to take care of our students. That just shows that we make sure that our students succeed. To be quite honest, when it comes down to it, BAU looks at return on investment. That's why our tuition is so cheap, and that's why our graduation rate is so high. We would rather focus on getting 90% of our students degrees than trying, to make our degrees hold more weight by denying more students, just so that we could give less students degrees. And if less of those students are graduating, more of those students are coming out of school with debt and nothing to show for it. So 90% graduation rate, and then a 76% employment rate, which is really, that's what it's all about, is the actual employment rate. And a 75% retention rate just shows that as well. In the United States, there's a low retention rate for international students. So a 75% retention rate just shows that these students are sticking with us and loving where they are. The student-teacher ratio, small class sizes, is how we can take care of each student. With over 160 graduates, because we're such a new university, we still have an alumni network of over 33,000, because each student that graduates joins the BAU Global Alumni Network. Just some other ways of how we stand out. We do have the Global Policy Institute, GPI. It's a think tank on our campus as well. I would say about every week they hold a think tank or panel discussion with former ambassadors, CEOs, campaign managers, and then we encourage the students with Q&A sessions at the end to network and really strengthen those relationships within DC. As far as our faculty as well, that's another way to network. All of our faculty member are former members of the U.S. Department of Transportation, USAID, Kodak, the IMF, World Bank, and so they also have the ability to network through these teachers as well. As far as the internship and work opportunities, there are plenty. We do offer CPT and OPT. We also do offer on-campus work positions. The marketing department itself hired about 6 on-campus employees to assist as well. We also do have a career counselor that assists students with getting work visas and with part-time work as well. We also have a program called ICOA. It's a 10-week job training program, which trains students on how to navigate the U.S. job market and the U.S. job immigration market. And as far as we are attempting to bring in co-op programs, that's 1 or 2 years in the making, so no real mention there. These are where the other campuses are located. There's, of course, ours in DC. We actually did just get a new campus in England. Then we have Berlin, Batumi, Georgia, Istanbul, and Cyprus.
Yes, so we have reached the second poll time. Let's see what are the questions in the offering for the second poll. The first question is, now we would like to know the quality parameters, and that's why I would request you to rate in the audio and video quality of this webinar. I hope all of you are able to see us and hear us properly, and you are able to get maximum information out of this webinar. So please rate us on the grading of excellent, very good, good, or poor accordingly. The second question is, what is the IELTS requirement for the undergraduate students at Bay Atlantic University? So yes, on the slide it was different and it's been updated, a recent update, but you can mention whichever is whichever you had seen on the slide, and then later on that would be updated. And the third one is, what is the student to faculty ratio at Bay Atlantic University? So did Chris mention, was it a 10 students is to one teacher, or did he mention, was it 15 students is to one teacher, or did he mention, was it 18 students is to one teacher, or was it 20 is to one student to teacher ratio? So yes, we've got nearly 48% of them voting. We'll just wait for another 5 seconds. So anyone who's still pending for giving the presentation, the vote, we'll wait for them. Yeah. So yes, we'll close the polling as of now. We've got 51% of them who have voted, and let's see the results. So it's very nice to know that 48% of them feel that the audio and video quality is excellent, and 34% of them have told it's very good. So major of the people are able to hear and see us properly, and a few who find it difficulty, we apologize for the inconvenience caused. And then coming to the what is the IELTS requirement for the undergraduate students at Bay Atlantic University? Yes, 62% of them have told a 6.0 and 28% of them have told a 5.5. So that as per the slide, it's a 6.0.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll be updating that, and from the in the next presentation, it would be mentioned 5.5. Thank you so much for that answers. And then the final one, we have 55% of them telling that it's a 10:1 student to teacher ratio, and that is why each student, especially the international students, gets that the personal touch that is required for them to excel at Bay Atlantic University. So thank you for all your participation, and Chris, over to you.
Thank you. So just kind of a last part here, and these are just some small kind of niche additional selling points for BAU at DC. As we had mentioned, the small class sizes, this allows us to be a little bit more involved with each student in and of itself. Classmates all over the world and all over the United States. Like I said, DC is a great melting pot for the United States itself, but we also represent about 31 other countries. As far as our clubs, student union, the student union itself is right there. We do also have a music club, theater club, book club. We also did just get a soccer team. So I just want to mention that. We have a first team meeting on Thursday. We also have a podcast room. This is especially important for students that can also get podcasts out there and can add that to their resume. And here we come to our questions.
Yeah, so it's question time now. So I would request all of you to please type in your queries or questions so that we can discuss with Chris on the same. So thank you, Chris. We have a few really interesting questions that we hope to get in touch at least a little bit. The first one is, could you just give a little more insight on the programs like the big data analytics? What would be the outcome of the student? Where exactly can they get placed? And just a little about the program.
So the program itself, and I'm gonna go back to our bachelor's degrees here. So the big data analytics and the cybersecurity, those would be our two master's degrees. And then for our bachelor's programs, there's the data science and information technology. As far as afterwards, one of the good things is I believe for the technology sector, OPT actually lasts 2 years instead of 1 year. So a student in the United States, if it's for technology, can stay in the United States for 2 instead of 1 year after that. So we do have a career counselor that's developed working relationships with a lot of the local businesses in DC. So they do have the option to stay for 2 years after that. And then of course, those 2 years are important because work visas in the United States, they basically depend on the institution or the business wanting to invest in the student themselves. So 2 years to strengthen that relationship in the business means that they're more likely to get a work visa when that time comes.
Sure. Thank you so much. The second one is we've got a few attendees who are from English-speaking countries like Philippines and some sub-Saharan African region like Nigeria, Kenya, Ghana, etc. So will the particular English requirement be mandatory for them, or will there be an exemption like conducting a Skype interview or a Zoom call or anything to just know, since their the first language is English? So is there any adjustments for those particular students?
So that's not a problem. Those requirements would not be required. In that case, we just ask that the schools have the ability to just make a note on their transcript that the classes were taught in English. So as long as the school just makes a note anywhere on there that just says that the classes were taught in English, then we treat it just as an English transcript.
So that would be done on a case by case according to whichever applications come in.
Yeah, and if schools are refusing to do that for one reason or another, which we haven't come across yet, but if schools are refusing to do that, then we'll get involved and we'll make sure that no student gets left behind.
Yeah, sure. The next one is they want to know that does this cybersecurity program include the artificial intelligence module, or as you mentioned, what would be a rough lead time for the blockchain and the AI programs to come in? Will it be a tentative spring, or do you expect it to extend up to fall 2021?
So the blockchain and the AI will take a lot longer. Unfortunately, with COVID, this has really kind of set us back right now. We're more so focused on the now than the next year than the year from now or the 2 years from now. So I would assume for blockchain and AI, we're probably looking at 1 to 2 years. I wouldn't use it as a cornerstone yet, but I would use it as a just kind of showing how much we're investing in our technology. So I wouldn't market it yet, but I would let everybody know that as far as where BAU is putting our growth and where we're putting our money where our mouth, so to speak, is in the technology side, and that's where we're growing our degrees.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for that information. Now, BAU being a global institution, in case if there are students who are coming from maybe Istanbul or any of your partner institutions that are there, is there a transfer system that works wherein they study 2 years there and then they can get transferred to the Washington, DC campus? Could you just give a little more briefing on those partnerships and how students can utilize that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I also believe, to be honest with you, I would check the website, but I believe there is a scholarship, small but still a scholarship for transfer students. As far as the ability to transfer, there's definitely the ability to transfer. It really, at the end of the day, boils down to transferability of credits and the degree. As I had mentioned, each BAU university takes on what that city and kind of their role is. And so, for example, DC offers programs in business, politics, and technology. The Berlin campus offers programs in architecture, engineering, and business. So you could do that if you were a business student, but if you were a political science or a tech major, you couldn't study 2 years in the United States and then finish in Berlin, because Berlin doesn't have those courses. So it really you do have the ability. It just boils down on, in that case, you would have to do maybe your first year in Berlin and do your core courses and then do your last 3 years in the US, or vice versa. So there is the ability to do that, but it just boils down to what majors are offered at which BAU to pick when you're attending which university.
Yeah, sure. So it would be a mix and match or pick and match of what exactly they want to study, and then later on can get transferred accordingly if the particular institutions do offer. Yeah, thank you so much. The next one is, can you explain a bit in detail about the employment opportunities for academic curriculum of Master of Science in Big Data Analytics? Just to know that what type of jobs students get once they complete the Big Data Analytic program.
As far as from a big data analytics standpoint, it also, because that's a master's degree, it also boils down to what the student initially got their bachelor's degree in. For example, we see a lot of students that do business and then big data analytics go into financial advising or like financial analyzing. Excuse me, but then you have your students that stay in the data science side and then stay in big data analytics, and then they could look into logistics and things like that. So because it's a master's degree, it also boils down to what their bachelor's degree is. But the good thing is that in a world that is moving towards numbers, when the marketing department meets, 20 years ago, I know it was, what do we think everybody's doing? What do we think everybody's doing? And now it's, what does that graph say and what do the numbers say for every job out there? So it's really more dependent on the bachelor's side of things, but that's the good thing about DC, is that DC is rapidly expanding and growing, that big data analytics, regardless of what industry you're looking at, everybody needs it.
Very true, and it's one of the most growing fields also, I feel, in the world. Yeah. So the next one is, just if you could just give us small insight on what are the accreditations programs have, like if the IT programs have or the business programs, what are the accreditations that are there?
So currently we are nationally accredited with ACICS.
Okay, that sure. And also, if you could just give a little more highlight on the OPT, CPT options. So now, in case if a student is studying an undergraduate program, and if the student is completing the 3 years, and will they get a 6-month internship or something, CPT like an option? Does the university provide or help in providing, and are these international students who are doing something of this sort?
Yeah, so the career counselor is setting up partnerships with local businesses, but the university itself is also focuses internally on our students for CPT. As I mentioned, the marketing department itself hired about 6 this year, and then every other department hired at least 1 student, and we keep each student to a 6-month, unless they perform exceptionally. We keep each student to a 6-month, or each semester is how long that job exists. That way we can offer more to each student. That way, if we're talking about one position over a 2-year period, we can offer that position to 4 different students. So we do that in order to offer that to the most students. And especially once this COVID-19 situation is completed, we're looking at a rapid growth from there. And so we're going to need to include more and more students. From a detailed perspective, I believe CPT is a maximum of 20 hours a week during the school year, and they can work full-time over the summer.
Sure. Thank you so much. The next one is, what is the scope of the finance and management students after the program? If you could just give a small insight on that.
After the program, as far as what opportunities are available to them?
Yes.
So we do have a lot of, as I mentioned, there are networking opportunities during the GPI panel discussions. That's a great way to network. There's also the faculty members that are available to them to be able to network for job opportunities. Like I said, we have the career counselor that develops partnerships with businesses, either for internships prior to graduation or for jobs post-graduation. OPT is still allowed for up to a year afterwards for business students. So that's another option there. We also do have the ICOA program. So that's a 10-week program prior to graduation that assists students in navigating the job market and also providing contacts in order to network themselves. And then lastly, we do have the BAU Global Alumni Network. So that's a little over 33,000 students worldwide. So regardless of where the student goes, whether it be to stay in DC or go anywhere else, because we know that that's not every student's want is to stay in DC, there's students worldwide that they can go to as well. And then we also do have post-graduation, we have local happy hours, and we do have job fairs in order, and we have local businesses come and they do on-site interviews for students.
Sure. Thank you so much. The next one is, can students now presently apply for the spring 2021 and the fall 2021?
Yes, like I said, we have rolling admissions right now, and the earlier a student applies, the more likely that they are to get the Hussein Usel scholarship, and the more money they're likely to get as far as the scholarship money, because it's up to 50%. So especially because we're so close to the fall intake, absolutely, they're able to apply for fall 2020, spring 2021. That's wide open.
Yeah. So do you offer online programs for the technology-based programs like data science or computer assurance or big data analytics or cybersecurity?
Well, currently right now, our programs are online in light of COVID. As I mentioned, once we resume, we'll be looking at a hybrid.
Yeah, so there are no programs that students can do completely online. That is, stay in their own country, complete the program from BAU and get the certification.
No, unfortunately and that's why the immigration office is trying to institute this new rule that students currently in the United States are not allowed to do online only courses, because the current rule exists that if a student is doing online learning, they have to be in the United States in order to do the online learning. So that's actually why I believe that they're trying to enact that rule, is because they're saying that if the students in other countries can't do online only, then why are the ones that are here able, that are stuck here able to do online only? So unfortunately, we can't. That's not really up to us. That's a legal requirement. But like I said, at the very least, in order to just meet that requirement, we'll do hybrids where a student might have to come in. We'll have one class once a week, so that the building will not be full.
Got it. Yeah, the social distancing will be maintained as per the federal law.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We'll make sure that the student is in as least as possible.
Yeah, sure. So thank you so much, Chris. I think you have really answered some great points, and we were able to address most of the questions. And in case if anybody of you have more questions, you can please contact our global admissions executive. Her details will be shared in the question answer session right away. So please get in touch. You can get in touch with her for any queries, applications, or any related resources of Bay Atlantic University that you require. So Chris, now I would request your closing lines for this webinar.
I mean, just as far as that's concerned, as I mentioned, just from what we like to found ourselves on right now, it's really affordability and accessibility. We like to make sure that, especially in DC, the students have access to many things. You're in the heart of one of the most interesting and smallest cities in the world. So you're compacting a lot into a little, so that really allows them to dive into the culture. Like I said, from a cost standpoint, we like to make sure that it's accessible to everybody. From a requirement standpoint, when we're talking English proficiency or otherwise, we like to make it accessible for everybody. So that's really kind of what we're founding it here on, is return on investment, getting the most out for a little. It's not just We like to compare ourselves to, for example, University of Chicago is a top 10 institution in the United States, but return on investment they're below 200 because you have to pay so much for that little bit of extra benefit. So that's what we like to found it on, is provide higher education to as many students as possible, and we have the manpower in order to make sure that each student gets the most out of their experience.
Sure. Thanks, Chris, for this wonderful and insightful presentation. And of course, the final message that you have given will surely motivate our attendees to send in maximum students, knowing that the financial aspect is being catered to and you get the best education possible. So just to our attendees, our second round of webinar for this same presentation will be aired on July 16th at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. So if any one of you joined us late, any one of you would like to recommend any of your students, colleagues, or references, please feel free to share the registration link. So we at MSM are super excited to introduce to you the Agent Summit 2020 live, and would request all of you to follow us on our Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube platforms to stay updated on our upcoming events. You can also visit our website, that is www.msquaremedia.com, for further updates. Thank you for participating in today's webinar. We hope to see you again next time. Stay home, stay safe. Thank you so much.
Thank you.